So the Chicago Bears just put a starter on the chopping block. I think they just made a move today that makes that very clear. And man, I absolutely hate this because it's a team captain. Let's get into this. And on top of this, I want to give us a little bit of fodder for discussion. The Detroit Lions think they are a dynasty. They are so cocky. We have another coach on their team spouting off about this matchup for the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears should be to the point that they have a bulletin board full of BS from the Detroit Lions, and this should be fuel to teach them a lesson this upcoming weekend. I haven't been more excited for a game or wanted to win a game more than this game against the Detroit Lions. And I think the Chicago Bears feel the same. And this is outside of head coach Ben Johnson wanting to win against his former team. So let's first get to the captain that was just put on notice with a signing. And I think you might know who I'm talking about all together already. So we're talking about Cairo Santos, right? He had a pretty rough night. Missed an absolutely crucial field goal. It came out, it wasn't fully a coaching mistake to ask Cairo Santos to kick it out of the back of the end zone. During the lead up to that, Santos assured head coach Ben Johnson that he could get it out of there. And I don't know about you guys, I'm getting a little tired of our kicker not having enough leg to do what he's got to do, regardless of his accuracy. You see NFL kickers hitting kicks routinely from 55 yards out, from 60 plus yards out as well. But we've got a kicker that missed a 50-yard field goal when it was absolutely essential for him to make it. And also that out of bounds thing on the final kickoff with 2:02 remaining. It was really the difference between the Chicago Bears getting the ball at 9 seconds and getting it with close to a minute. So let's kind of look at this. The Chicago Bears, they just put Cairo on notice. They signed Jake Moody to the practice squad. And before you're like, hey, wait a minute. Isn't that the guy that's missing kicks left and right for the San Francisco 49ers? Yes, absolutely it is. But the guy was an absolute stud coming out of the University of Michigan. He was such a stud that the San Francisco 49ers, they signed him in the 3rd round. He's just got a case of the yips. Maybe he needs to watch Tin Cup on how to get rid of the yips. Maybe Kevin Costner's available to help him. But if we're looking at this here, the 49ers, they did release Jake Moody. Here it is here. They did release Jake Moody, and he's going to be here for competition for our very own Cairo Santos. Kind of the lead up to this, we've got Moody, 2023 3rd round pick by the 49ers. He went 1 for 3 kicking in week 1, but he had an absolutely great rookie season. That's why it kind of feels like the yips. He made 84% of his field goal attempts. He has a strong leg, but then he struggled after suffering a high ankle sprain in 2024, and he just hasn't quite been the same since then. The 49ers can't afford this, but if you listen to head coach Kyle Shanahan of the Niners, he thinks Moody needs a change of scenery and nothing less. So let's kind of look at this. This is straight from the coach. He wasn't kicking the ball well enough, and it was way too inconsistent. So once that happens, and when your stroke in golf is changing all the time, that's what made me think about Cheech Marin and Tin Cup. Maybe he needs a caddy. And so you're trying to fix things, trying not to miss. It's very hard to succeed at this level that way. There wasn't anything I had to beat around the bush on. He knew that. But to a degree, I think this will give him a chance to move on and hopefully find a place where he can get a swag back in that way. So, I mean, I think the Bears definitely do have a kicking problem. Kicking issues reared their ugly heads again on Monday night. And, he whiffed the kickoff in the 4th quarter. This is to hear from special teams coach of the Bears, Richard Hightower. He just didn't hit it as flush as he wanted to hit it. It just didn't go out the back, and that happens. And guess what? Nobody feels worse about that than Cairo. Nobody does. But Hightower was obviously upset about the missed field goal. He blamed Santos and the entire field goal team for the missed kick. Let's hear what he had to say about that. We never want to leave points on the board. Hightower continued with, my diagnosis is this. It always starts with the operation. Snap, hold, and kick. That wasn't clean. Protection was good. That wasn't clean, and we didn't get it done, and we need to get that done. So Santos, he signed a contract extension with the Bears in 23. It goes through 27. The guy did make 85.2% of his field goal attempts in his career, but he's always struggled from deep. He went 96 of 131 from attempts more than 40 yards in his career. I mean, he did kick well from 50 out last year, but we're seeing his problem again. The special teams coach, Hightower, he seems to think that it's partially on the whole special teams unit, on the operation, but it gets to a point, man, just really tired of hearing excuses here. Just tired of hearing excuses as Chicago Bears fans. I'm sure you guys are too. It gets to a certain point that if you're the kicker, your job is to kick the football, and I don't want to hear excuses. So a little more good news coming into this Detroit Lions game, and this news kind of makes me a little crazy that the Detroit Lions are still talking crap because they've got two starters sitting out practices. You've got Jack Campbell. He's probably going to play, but Taylor Decker missed 2 practices this week. Coaching staff is saying that he's going to play, but you've got left tackle Taylor Decker with a shoulder injury. If he does play, he's not going to be 100%. And this is kind of another arrow at an offensive line that seems not up to the task if you saw that Green Bay game. And Detroit is so cocky. They think they can that they can lose an all-pro center. They think they can move a rookie in and have him. They can move Mahogany around. Whatever it is that they're planning to do, we know as Bears fans that just using spare parts on an offensive line, it doesn't work. There's no continuity. There's no strength because Sewell can be as good as he wants to be, but he's only as good as the sum of the parts on this offensive line. So not only is Taylor Decker still, they're saying their offensive coordinator, John Morton, he was just asked about Decker. He said, we're totally expecting Decker to play. And when Morton was asked if Decker was unable to play on Sunday, if the team would turn to, oh my goodness, who are they turning to? They're going to turn to Jamarco Jones? No, he's out. Are they going to turn to this player called Manu? Yeah, maybe Manu would start at left tackle. Morton said, I would think so. You'd have to ask Coach Dan Campbell that. He's not giving a straight answer. And then we've got a reserve interior offensive line, a guy named Kyoda Awasaki. I mean, I don't even know this guy's name. These are the guys that are going to be possible replacements. And this is from offensive line coach Hate Fraley. I think they've lost their fastball on the offensive line. They still continue to talk trash. And a player that they would usually use, Dan Skipper, to fill in the holes here. A guy that, I thought the Bears would go after. They kind of did the game. They dropped him off the roster. Then they re-signed him for less money. Dan Skipper has been missing practices with tendonitis in his right knee. That's from Detroit Football Network's Justin Rogers. So, yeah, the Lions have been using Giovanni Manu at left tackle in practices. That's not going to work, you guys. And I cannot wait for this game because we've got defensive coordinators talking crap. We've got a head coach talking crap. But look at what Kelvin Shepard had to say ahead of this Detroit Lions Chicago Bears game. This is absolutely ridiculous. Let me find it here. This is absolutely crazy. And I'm gonna bring this up here. You guys have to see this. This is absolutely nuts. Unbelievable. Defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard. This is crazy. Defensive coordinator now, Kelvin Shepard, a first-year defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, said that he told his defense that Sunday against the Bears will be like training camp practice. They've seen all this before going against Johnson in Detroit. That's what he's telling his defense going against our head coach in Detroit. We know that's not going to be the same offense. And then you've also got the head coach, Dan Campbell, him saying, we are going to win this game So much trash being talked by the Detroit Lions. I'm sure the Chicago Bears are aware. I'm sure our head coach is aware. I cannot wait for us to rub this in their faces. This is an absolute must-win, and nothing would give me more pleasure than to send the Detroit Lions out of their home stadium after all the boos that Amon-Ra St. Brown says that the crowd is going to give our head coach. That's great. That's going to fire him up even more. But nothing would make me happier than sending these overly cocky Detroit Lions out of their home stadium 0-2. Let's get it done, Chicago Bears. Bear down. I cannot wait. I'll continue to be here on the daily, and you guys let me know in the message board what you think about this matchup. I'm feeling good about it. We'll talk soon.